rolling. Hey guys, Travis here at the last day of the International 3. This is not usually my type of gig, but I'm here with Kelby, who's the general manager for Counterlogic Gaming. For Dota fans, you may remember they previously had a team in Dota. For League fans, you may know that they have a mediocre team in League. How's it going, Kelby?
It's going very well. How about yourself, Travis?
It's going well. I hear you have a house guest this weekend?
I do. He's actually been quite present. I must commend you for your manners in greeting my parents and staying at the home. You are quite the class act.
Thank you for letting me stay there. Anyway, let's actually talk about some stuff because we're at this event. So I'm here just sort of checking it out. What are you doing here?
I'm here checking it out as well. Dota's been something that since some people got onto the team, I've been paying more and more attention to, and the numbers have been growing a lot, and the game is just really interesting to me as well. So, you know, I thought it was time. I didn't get to go to the International last year because I was busy helping the team out at PAX, and the International was happening at the same time. So I thought I'd just come out here and see what's up, see if I can see something in the future for CLG and Dota.
So before we get into that, we should discuss, there are some players here that are actually doing quite well that used to be on a CLG Dota team. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. CLG had a team at the International last year with Aki, Miracle, Loda, Pycat, and Misery. And two of those guys are now on LGDN, and two of those guys are, well, one of them is on Alliance, and then Loda, who was on CLG Dota before the International, joined with Zenith, is now on Alliance as well. So it's good to see that those guys are having success.
Speaking of that, I mean, I'm not the Dota correspondent. That's my good friend Slasher. But
I should probably be having this interview with him then, shouldn't I?
No, not at all, because we're good friends. But Loda, I heard you say Loda. I heard you say Alliance. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they seem to be doing very well here.
Yeah, in fact, they've only dropped one game, and they're the favorite to win it. They've been on a tear. I think they've won collectively like $120,000 over the last 6 months in prize money or something like that. They're doing really, really well. And it's nice to see Western teams competing against teams that have been, the Chinese teams that have been dominant in the Dota scene for so long. It gives me hope that in the League of Legends scene, we can have some Western teams compete with the Koreans and some of the Eastern teams as well in our game.
So where I was going with that is it kind of rough seeing these guys that used to be part of the CLG brand have such huge success without it? Are there any feelings of, it was kind of unfortunate that they got away, or I mean, I don't know the exact details of how they left, but what's it like seeing them doing so well here?
Well, it's really awesome to see them do so well. Obviously, everybody that's been a part of CLG, when they go on and they have continued success elsewhere, it's pretty cool, at least from my personal perspective, to see them do so well, like CLG Black, which is mostly now Vulcan. It's really awesome to see those guys to continue to succeed, because when they're involved in your organization, you get closer to them and stuff, and sometimes relationships don't continue because they just don't make sense at the time or whatever. And look, they went and they found new partners, and it's really good to see them having success here. So I'm happy for them. Now, hopefully, in the future, if things make sense, we can have success with new partners in Dota. So,
are you disappointed at all that they are not still with CLG?
Well, would it be nice to have the CLG name on the most dominant team in international history if they actually do continue the success that they're having? Yes, that would be very nice if that would have been the case, but it's not the case.
Were there ever discussions of possibly having these guys on CLG? I mean, once the CLG, I think it was a disband, right, that occurred with the CLG Dota team?
Yeah, CLG Dota after the International last year, like many teams did, and like many teams will probably do again this year, disbanded, and like I said, they split up into LGDN and No Tidehunter, and Miracle just retired. But yeah, I think that that was under previous management. I hadn't stepped into running the team yet, so I'm not fully aware of the conversations that went on. But I think that Aki and Loda did talk to us about staying with CLG, but for whatever reason, things didn't work out. So, but I think it's worked out for them, so that's pretty awesome.
Now, as you've referenced, you said that it would be kind of cool to have a Dota team working with you guys again, and also you mentioned that you expect to see some teams sort of fall apart, maybe reform, some changes. Are there, as part of the is any part of you here looking for a Dota team? Are you talking to people? What's the current CLG, thing going on there?
Well, yeah, I mean, the primary business reason that I would be here is obviously to see how Dota fits into CLG's plans for the future. And I think that anybody who's followed me on social media has known that for a while I've kind of been looking more seriously into Dota and talking to people and see if we can work something out. So ultimately, though, I really want things to be a really great fit. Admittedly, before, when we had a Dota team, most of the focus was on our two LoL teams, which was, CLG Prime and CLG, CLG Prime, not CLGNA.
CLGNA?
CLG Prime. And so most of our focus was on them. And even though, the Dota team, I mean, you can go talk to those guys. They really like their time on CLG. I think that we could have promoted them better and showed them more attention. I'm excited now that if we were to get into that position again, I feel very confident in the fact that we could show them the proper attention and give them the proper support. Now it's just the situation where we need to find the ideal fit, because I only want to get invested in another title if it's something that I feel really, really confident in. I mean, we've had side conversations. I'm very risk averse, for better or worse, in my management of the organization. So it would need to be the right fit, and I'm trying to see if there is a right fit out there.
So looking at Dota 2 as a game, as an esport right now, do you feel like that's the natural progression for Counter Logic Gaming if you guys were going to get into another game?
At this present, I mean, the climate changes quite often. I was very public about when WCS announced that, StarCraft, this could be really big for StarCraft, and then unfortunately the way things panned out, I decided that wasn't the direction we wanted to head. But yes, at this current moment, and I mean, it's easy to be excited about it now with the numbers that have been coming out around the international. But even before then, for the past couple months, I've been interested because I saw viewership grow and grow and grow. And the thing that's really awesome about the Dota scene, that's different from StarCraft and League now, is that it's still all organic. So you have all of these independent tournament producers who are putting on their own events, and there's a major online cup. There aren't as many LAN events. There's just, like Star Ladder, ESWC, Thor, and obviously International and some other small things, but there's major online cups that are getting great viewership. It seems like every week now. So Dota, I mean, obviously I'd like to see CLG, when the time is right, expand into other titles. We're not just a League of Legends organization, we're an esports organization. But Dota, yes. Sorry, that was a really long-winded answer, but Dota seems to be the target at the moment. So.
Are there any players here in particular, or any teams that you're talking to or that you've had discussions with at this event so far?
Oh, well, that is where I'm gonna cut you off there. But I mean, I'm here scouting out teams. So
you've had some discussions with some of them at least.
Well, that would seem the logical conclusion. Yes.
All right. Let's actually transition over to League, because we've got that coming up. Super Week is coming up, which is, of course, the final week of the LCS. You have Counter Logic Gaming. I think they're tied for third at the moment. Is that correct?
We own the tiebreaker over TSM because we're 4-0 against them this split.
Is that how that works out?
It should be, I would think. When you beat a team 4 times and they don't beat you once in the split of LCS, I feel like, yeah, if there was a tiebreaker, that should be the primary determining factor.
Well, I mean, I do remember in the group stages of this tournament, for example, TI, they had to. I think Dignitas had to replay a team that they were tied with, despite having a past victory with them. So maybe not always in all tournament formats, but either way, you guys you could claim that you're ahead of TSM. And what are you guys doing to get ready for the big Super Week? Because of course it all sort of comes down to this.
Well, yeah, we've been conferring with Monty, who's our new coach and analyst, as and obviously been practicing. The guys have been playing nonstop essentially since the last week ended. They had one day off this weekend. And the unfortunate thing though about the format of Super Week, and that this is just my own opinion, is that because we play 5 teams, there's 8 teams in LCS. We play 5 teams. We're the 6th team, so that only leaves 2 LCS scrim partners who we don't play during Super Week. So scheduling scrims, and it's not just me, most teams are finding it difficult to find scrim partners because they, when you practice against somebody that you're playing in Super Week, it's not the best environment because then you don't want to show strategies to them and stuff like that. So we'll see. Super Week will be interesting, but it's obviously critically important because the top 6 are not determined, and only the top 6 get to come back to Seattle for PEX. So I'm confident, though, that the team's going to do well this week and put ourselves in a good position so that we are set up well for regionals, and then we can do well at regionals and go to Worlds, which is obviously the primary focus.
You mentioned that there's only about 2 teams that you can play. Of course, I know of several LCS teams that frequently scrim against challenger teams. Some of the more notable ones being like TBD and those. Is that ever a thing that you guys look at? Are you scrimming any of the challenger teams?
Yeah, we scrim TBD and NWE a decent amount. Unfortunately, because of MCS that's going on, they're a little bit busy as well. But yeah, no, we scrim them, and actually, some of the challenger teams, obviously, they're not in most of them are in LCS for a reason. They're not as deep as some of the LCS rosters, but there's specific players on some of these teams actually that are really, really strong individual players. Specifically, a guy who's been making a big name for himself. I guess I'll give him a little bit of a plug. Is Quas from NWE. He's I think a lot of people have been noticing his talent, and he's an exceptional top laner in NA. So it's always interesting to get matched up against these amateur teams where maybe as a team they're not as strong, but you have these really, really strong individual lane matchups, which provide good experiences for our guys in practice. And not only that, but the challenger teams tend to run more unconventional picks, you know what I mean? So it's interesting practice to get to throw in there.
Do you find that there might be any conflict of interest with these challenger teams because, of course, you might have to fight them later on in relegation or down the road?
Yeah, I mean, logically, we actually had a sidebar conversation about this, which you're now bringing up, which I'm happy to talk about. I find it interesting that the dynamic is that one could logically make the deduction that it is in the best interest of LCS teams to not scrim challenger teams because they don't want challenger teams to get better and then have harder competition were they to go down to relegation. So, but that being said, pretty much all LCS teams that I know are still scrimming challenger teams. But yeah, I think it's kind of funny that the way that things are set up, one could make the deduction that, hey, I don't want this challenger team, or the LCS teams could band together and be like, we don't want to scrim challenger teams because we don't want a chance of being relegated, so we should form together and not scrim them, have them only scrim themselves, and just because the natural disparity in the level of talent between the two, between challenger teams and LCS teams, the challenger teams wouldn't be able to improve as much, and they would kind of stay separated in terms of skill level.
Now, I know we need to wrap up because, of course, Slasher, I see him over there with one of the analysts, and we're sharing the wonderful Eric Tay as our video producer. But I do want to talk to you just briefly. You and I both had the extreme pleasure, at least from my perspective, of seeing Free to Play, which is, of course, the Valve documentary that they've produced. I wanted to sort of get your takes on that, especially as someone who has previously produced a esports actually 2 different esports documentaries about your team.
Yeah, well, I will say that Free to Play I thought was it better than the CLG documentary? Maybe. No, actually, the Free to Play documentary that we saw last night was excellent. It was by far. I mean, there haven't been many esports documentaries produced, but this. I mean, when this is released to the public, people will clearly see that this is like the new bar that has been set for esports documentaries, and Valve just did an incredible job producing it. And I'm a bit of a movie buff, so I won't get on too much of a tangent here about all the intricacies that I thought were great about it. But yeah, it's great to see somebody put so many resources behind the documentary, and I think that there's some really interesting parts of the storytelling that we both liked. The in-game cinematics that I think that. So essentially, what happened? This won't spoil anything. Is it's the tale of TI1. So they went back and they recreated some of the scenes in the Source engine, and then had that put into the movie to tell how the matches played out, just like brief snippets, kind of like the Twisted Fate cinematic that came out. It's like they did those and then they put it into the movie to play out some of the matches. It was really, really well produced, and not only that, but it really got into the human side of the title. Is actually ironic because it's saying, I believe the message there is that even though it's a free-to-play game, obviously being a professional player is quite taxing on your life. So it gets into the human side of the game much more. And there's 3 main storylines that it follows. My personal favorite, I think, is HYHY, who now is actually on Singapore Sentinels playing League. But yeah, the storylines were really compelling. I really enjoyed the movie, and when it comes out, I highly encourage everybody to see it. I don't know what their plans for distribution are, but it was a great piece of storytelling, and I'm excited that this will hopefully push esports documentaries further and further.
So, sort of wrapping up the interview, you have any shout-outs, plugs you want to say, or any messages to future Dota teams of CLG?
Future Dota teams of CLG. Were there to be any future Dota teams of CLG, we're excited to have you aboard, treat you right, and let's grow together. That was so cheesy. I'm sorry.
If somebody has a Dota team at any level, what's the email address where they can send you an email to get that CLG sponsorship?
Kelby at clgaming.net. I'd also like to thank Azubu TV, Razer, iBuyPower, and NZXT, our sponsors, because they do a great job supporting us, and just love to give love to them.
Well, thank you so much for the interview. I'm going to pass over my video producer to Slasher. You can check out all of Slasher's coverage of TI3, my coverage of LCS, League of Legends stuff, everything that we do at GameSpot Esports at gamespot.com/esports.